Welcome to the Splitting Hairs podcast presented by Jackrabbit Illustrated. I'm joined by Thomas Stacker here again. We're calling this segment Stack on Sacks. This week, we got another big one, man. We're going to Grand Forks. We're playing the the Fighting Hawks. And stole that one from Zim. I don't know if he coined it, but I find that pretty comical. But I know the game will not be comical because they're a stingy bunch. They bring it, but before we dive into all the details and the ins and outs and what we're looking forward to on Saturday, want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Cottonwood Coffee out of Brookings, South Dakota, the Bistro as well there, and of course, Drake's Place out of Bowdle, South Dakota. For those of you who listen to the B Team podcast, Brendan was fortunate enough to go check out Drake's Place. Loved it, thought it was phenomenal. We love supporting local. So that's why we are grateful to have these two sponsors. Of course, Cottonwood Coffee. That's where I got my fix. I love coffee, big caffeine guy. Needed an IV drip pretty much my senior year with everything that I was doing as far as academics and sports and all that. But great quiet place to get some work done and enjoy some company from friends. So with that, let's dive into it, man. Stack, how you feeling?
I'm all good. I'm excited to see the boys play again. I think they played a great game last week. I think one of the coolest things about it is just seeing the way our coaches coached last week. I think that's really huge. They see something new, adapt on the fly. An example is how Spencer Wagee was kind of kicking some ass a little bit for a while, and then we started running power pass, which brings our the guard out there to block the DN, and everyone else is kind of full sliding to the other side. And seeing our coaches say all right, cool, you're getting some pressure off the edge. Let's see you do that against arguably our best pass protector and arguably our best O-lineman overall. So I'm excited to see what they do this week.
Yeah, no, you literally took the words out of my mouth in terms of the adjustments that were made on Saturday. I think it was one of those things where bend but don't break seemed to be the mantra, right? You heard it from Adam Bach. You heard it from a lot of these other guys. When that's the reality, when you're in a heavyweight fight, you're gonna take some jabs, you're gonna take some hooks, body shots here and there. But it's who's standing at the end, right? And because of those adjustments, because of the tenacity, because of the tone setting we were able to come out there with, and kind of just shaking off a little bit of the jitters or whatever it was in that first half, that first quarter, really too, that got out of hand, was pretty remarkable. I mean, that's something we've done before when we faced teams back probably about 10 plus years ago. Stephen F. Austin, we overcame a 24-point deficit, and really it was just gunslinger mentality, down the field, some timely turnovers, but our defense was not nearly as constrictive back then as it is now. We were still pretty stout against the run, but to see what happened and transpired on Saturday was literally a leveling up. And what was it like? What was it like being in that atmosphere?
Oh, it was awesome. They hated me out there, man.
Yeah.
I think once when Mason McCormick recovered that fumble, I turned around, this old dude behind me. I was like, "You guys just lost." I'm like, "This game's over."
Really?
Yeah, because once I saw that, I'm like, "Bro,
We
there's
predicted it. We retained the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, our guys, they care. I mean, the coolest thing to see about that, and I think throughout my career, year after year, the guys always win a certain game where I was like, man, that team last year, we may have lost that game. And that's how I feel about these guys. Last year, I don't know if we win that game coming down from 21-7, you know what I mean, in that kind of environment. And to see guys grow and kind of not care about certain things, hey, I'm gonna play my ass off every play. That's really cool to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think that stems from, if you had to put your finger on it?
I think it's just guys being in that situation before, right? And being all right, well, I'm not gonna let that happen again. You know what I mean? That Montana State loss, being down big and you still got a chance to win, but it's we didn't do it. These guys have been there. They've been in, the national championship. They've been in big ass games before, and they know how to turn it on in those situations. So I think it's just a lot of knowing the the gravity of the situation I'm in and kind of taking a hold of it. So it was cool to see.
Yeah, there's definitely no substitute for experience, especially when it comes to exposure, right? Being in those environments, the Kinnicks of the world, obviously slugging North Dakota State in the mouth in 20 at their place, rushing for over 300 plus yards, and really just dominating that game and controlling it for throughout. Mirrored what we saw ourselves being able to do in the future, right? Full stadium, not full stadium, overcoming like 5 false starts is incredible. It just shows you like credit, obviously credit to that atmosphere. It's always been great, but credit to our fans too. Like Jim Poppin here, friend of the pod, said you weren't the only one, man. And big shout out to the Jacks fans that um, helped them barely surpass the attendance record for the 1-2 game, which had never happened in 30 years, barely surpass us playing 1-4 South Dakota the previous week. So congrats to them for just getting to that mark. But yeah, it definitely took a lot of Jacks fans to help them get there. And we're proud of you guys for traveling. And Jacks fans this year have shown up and showed out almost to the tune of, we're definitely going to break attendance records this year if we continue to show up out for the last couple or the last one and then playoffs for sure. But with that being said, Mike McFeely, I believe, put this out there in the media. It might be a Jackrabbit world, and I think we're going to find out this week if that truly is the case. So, with that being said, let's transition. Let's flush the marker, not literally but figuratively, because that wouldn't go over too well. And then let's dive into a little undie talk. So we're going to Grand Forks, Stack, and last time you were there, this is Mark Gronowski's only FCS loss. So talk a little bit about kind of the momentum and ebbs and flows of that game to the best of your recollection, and then how you think that might be contrasted versus last year and then this year.
I think a major part of that game was just I think turnovers. Like that block punt that they got, like they recovered it like right by our goal line. That one was like a huge momentum switch for us. And also to credit them, like they had some really good players. Like I'm pretty sure one of their tackles, if he's not still in the league, he got picked up by
he was drafted.
Yeah. And they had a running back who was really, really, really good, who's no longer there for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
And I think and I hate to say this, but I know for me personally, me and a couple of my friends, like we kind of went into the game like taking it for granted, like it's just UND, like they don't play nobody, like whatever. And I remember Coach Smith chewed our ass for that week actually. So you're like, oh dude, like these guys suck, like because they're not like the biggest dudes, they're not the most dynamic guys, at least on the O line. But like they played hard and they're very physical. So I mean, they got some good players, but if I'm being completely honest, like I think, not that hopefully the guys aren't listening to this, right? But like I think they could really kick their ass this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they can kick ass every week because it tends to be that we're our biggest enemies, right? We're our own biggest enemies. And it was the case from that 2020 matchup in the spring in which a fake punt, a gimmicky play, also kind of turned the tide a little bit. And then I think there was a sense of overwhelm. I mean, there was there was a wide receiver. It doesn't matter who it was, but a phenomenal player for the Jacks dropped a wide open touchdown ball that really would have extended the game to 14-point lead. We ended up kicking field goals and settling there instead of getting these 7-point outcomes. And I think that it just had an accrued effect, I would say, probably. And then from a defensive perspective, like you on the D line and the chain gang and everybody, they run those elephants on parade, as Coach Sarvis used to call it back in the day with D-line, where literally they're going to roll Schuster out so far out of the pocket, move the pocket. So one, to create visible passing lanes for him, and two, use your strengths against you, which are the defensive pressures that you're able to, dial up. And that's very difficult on a secondary that at the time I would say was probably one of the departments on the team that needed a little bit of assistance. That was definitely lacking in certain ways, right? So, all that into a proper place. We had them last year. Last year, how are they different than they maybe were in the spring versus how they were different that we've seen them on film this year?
Uh, oh, and in the spring, I thought they schemed us up really well. Like you said, like elephants on parade, kind of taking your D line out of it and kind of like making the guys in the back really play. And last year, my bad. Last year is a lot more. They trusted their run game a lot more for sure. And like, when you play a running back like that, like I don't want to be like, oh, like they're not good, all that. Like he was good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like he
Otis
should be in the
Weah.
he should be in the conversation with Lipke when you talk about like hard runners
Oh,
and like
yes.
top end speed.
You
Like
don't really bring him down with the initial point of contact. It's
not at all.
yeah.
Like
And
he's
if
a
and if
bone.
and if it is, he trips. Like
Yeah,
he was definitely a solid running back, and I think they had Skokna, who was also able to get his very very quick burst guy again. Maybe did some more in the passing game than the running game, but spelling those change of pace guys that's tough to contend with over and over.
yeah. And I think this year their quarterback's been playing well, and they got some good receivers. Like they're all tall dudes. You know, some of them are possession receivers, but they can really go up and get it. So I mean, I'm believing they'll probably try and test the Jack secondary again
Mm-hmm.
since they don't have the same running attack that they had. And I don't think that without a running back like Otis, I don't think you'll be able to just kind of try and pound the ball against the Jacks because their O line isn't. I don't. I personally don't think they're ready for our guys, but like I always feel like that.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I think they do a really great job, probably one of the best in the country, really playing to their own scheme, as opposed to trying to recruit a certain type that's not going to be compatible with some of their aims. Like they recruit more of the wiry wide receivers who are more maybe possession guys, but don't let it fool you, they'll produce. And then you have obviously a rushing attack that's very different since Weah's departure, but the guy that makes it tick is so good with the football, Tommy Schuster. Good with the football in terms of high completion percentage throws, really just extensions of the run game when you look at a lot of it. They will hit you with a lot of window dressing, as we call it in the football world, where they're doing trades, shifts, motions, just different things to move the pocket to, again, maximize his skill set within their own scheme from an offensive perspective. And just what do you think are some things that the Jacks need to do to combat that? Like, how do you combat that schematically? Better rush lanes, like rush. Don't, when you get upfield, understand there's probably play action, stick your foot in the ground and go run to a point.
I think a lot of it is just like watching film, right? Like and seeing like what does this mean? Like what I'm seeing, like what does that mean? Because like offensive linemen tend to I mean, from my perspective, like playing D line, offensive linemen a lot of the time like give away like what it really is, right? Like if it's pass, like his pads are going way up. If it's play action pass, like he'll pop up, and if he drops down again, it's like, oh, that's play action, right? It's
Yeah.
like just mainly just watching film, which I know they all are, and just being prepared for obviously some things that I haven't seen quite yet. Like I think the way the Jacks have played this year, and they've been beating ass like every single game. They're going to see something they haven't seen yet,
Yeah.
right?
So it brings up a great point. Stack and Chad here weighing in with exactly that. We 100% think we'll see another trick play, right? Because they're going to want to test our discipline. I think what happens to just innately with some teams, not necessarily the Jacks at all. I think this team is too mature and too seasoned. But when you do see a trick play, even if it doesn't go for six, maybe it goes for a chunk play, it can have a psychological impact on the game. It can create doubt. It can cause you to slow play certain things and not trust your natural keys and reads. And I think this is where UND feeds, right? It's feast or famine for them based off a lot of this stuff. And it does make football fun because who can
Yeah,
rise up and who can address the chess game, right? Are we playing 4D chess or are they playing 4D chess and
right.
we're playing checkers? So that's an interesting thing to bring up. How do you think, where do you think, which position group and which level of the defense do you think really shines in a game like this, knowing what you know about North Dakota and what they want to do offensively?
I would definitely say, like in my game, like in the games I've seen and I've been there, or at least even last year, like I don't know, it's hard to say because like once I bring up last year, I got to think about K. Trevere just absolutely destroying that last drive they had, but then Malik Lofton picking that
Yep.
ball off.
So clutch right there.
Yeah, like It's tough, man. But I think, if our D line gets, because I know Chase Norblade coming back this week. It's
Oh,
hard,
is he?
man.
Let's go.
Yeah, so we're getting a
Our
lot of,
safeties are deep this year, and that was a
yeah,
position group that really needed to be addressed. Shout out to Coach Bobbitt, former teammate of yours, I'm sure. Or were you?
yeah. I was there with Bob in
Yeah,
my freshman year.
freshman year? Yeah. So shout out to Coach Bobbitt. Great dudes, really done a great job with those safeties, man. Very disciplined.
Yes,
A lot more physical, I think, than in some years past. And so just credit to him, young coach, really up in the ante. And so Norblade back. So yeah, honestly, everything feeds off of one another, and you can't really look at it in isolation. But so I think we're a collective effort in this one is definitely needed.
yeah.
So that's just kind of where I stand, because to Chad's point right here, I think this is what they're going to try to do: dink and dunk us, and try to lull us to sleep so that they can, take that advantage with some type of trick play.
And that would I feel like that kind of stuff like worked like in the past. But I mean, like with the intensity I know like Mark has about a game like this, and like Isaiah has about a game like this. Guys that are there, like guys that were there and are pissed that we lost that game, right? Like they're like this means something to them, like akin to
Yeah.
something like last week,
I
right?
think this means so much more, because honestly, Mark hasn't lost to another FCS school, and really that game felt a lot. I mean, credit to them, because they came out strong very late in that game too. I think Weah had a ton of broken tackles for 6 on one of his last touchdown runs in the spring, and then just the lack of discipline or focus or whatever it was with some of those trick plays, fourth down conversions, and just like unlucky things happening in special teams leaves that bitter taste in your mouth. And Mark is a competitor, and clearly he's a winner, because what is he, 14-2 overall with only one FCS loss as a starter? That dude just wins, baby. So I think he'll have not a, I don't, Mark doesn't seem like the guy that gets like too high, too low. He seems like he just has a youthful exuberance for the game, and a passion for the game. But please believe he's going to come into this pretty focused on whatever he can do to turn the tide, in the favor of the Jacks completely in this one.
No, for sure.
And you make a good point. So Isaiah was very young when he played this team last. Well, when he first played this team. When he last played this team, he was on a pitch count because he was coming off of his injury, his collarbone injury. He's a little bit dinged up this week, but I think, he's a grown man, and he's going to rise up, and he's going to inflict some punishment, as he always does. But that being said, I think this game lends itself very much also to Amar Johnson and the success he's had and the confidence that he showed on Saturday. Talk about that, Stack. What was that like, watching that cutback live and that subtle stiff arm?
Bro, I was like my seat was right like in front of where he scored. So like, man, I was going crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was dope to see like that first cut. I was like, oh, I was like, damn, okay. And like with the stiff arm, I'm like, bro, like this kid's legit. Like not kid, like to but like this, I'm like, this dude's like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He
So
is
I mean,
him.
no, for sure. Like to see him take that step and when Isaiah goes down, not be timid at all, like about what the load that's gonna be on his shoulders the rest of his game. And
Yeah.
see him kind of like take that next step and be like, oh yeah, like I'm one of those guys too now. like
Yeah. Oh, totally.
like
And,
I
and
better sorry.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, what's so impressive to me about Amar? Watch FBS backs, watch their movement quality, watch their movement library. So for folks who don't know what I'm talking about, a lot of times your human performance coaches or your skill coaches, they want to see knee bend, they want to see flexibility. How quick can you get in and out of breaks, in and out of cuts? What's your physicality at the point of contact? What's your balance like? He's got a deep toolkit, man. He's got one of the deepest toolkits we've seen as a running back at South Dakota State. And I know
Yes.
that's a bold statement from me, but watch him. Just watch him really closely and diagnose how he moves. Got big legs. He's got a big butt. And that's twitchy, and he can get burst, and he's smooth. That cutback, man, was so smooth. And I think Ben, from the B Team podcast, he's the gift god. That's his nickname. He has he was showing this subtle slow-mo of that run, and that stiff arm was just so nasty late.
And
Not only cut back completely across the grain, but I'm really excited to see, what he's going to bring to the table this week with a lot of that confidence.
and the way, like, I'd even say on that run, like, just the seeing, like, live the acceleration out of that cut, like, from 0 to 100, like, bro, he's got top end speed for real.
No
So, like,
doubt, man.
it's gonna be
RBU,
big.
RB, and he's so smooth about it too. He's so smooth. So, yeah, just hoping everybody will stay healthy for this one. And when we talk about health, we talk about futures and projections and what guys are going to do. But Tucker Kraft is supposed to be back this week, supposed to be, but he was also maybe flirting with being back last week. What are your thoughts on the coaching staff and the training staff and medical staff allowing him to get some reps this game? Do you think it happens?
Tucker knows himself well. He's a competitor, and I know, if he's feeling good enough to go, like if he feels like I can go today, he will go. You know what I mean? And we're all excited for him. I know he's itching to get back out there. So I think I would say I'm more inclined to think that Tucker goes this week, but
Yeah.
then again, I'm not quite positive yet.
If he goes pitch count,
20 max plays, I'd say.
yeah, I think that's a good sweet spot. 20
Yeah.
plays max. I want to say probably most blocking, I would think.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that's like one huge thing that Tucker brings to this offense. Like when I was watching him in the summer when we went back for that wedding, like Tucker, like churning his feet, moving people off the line of scrimmage, like solo blocking a DN. Like that's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah. No, and I love the article. We should plug Zimmer's article too about Kraft coming back. In a lot of the, natural anxieties just from a college athlete in general, not only one who has draft potential, but just the impact that a major injury early, when you have waning eligibility, that impact that can have on the psyche of young athletes, man, because we're people first and foremost, which is why everybody loves Coach Stig, because he understands that. Not a lot of coaches these days, certainly not with his track record and success, maybe get that quality in that component of the game and how and why he's successful for it. But highlighting in that article, it was great because, which thanks for the share here, Matt. There's the link for those of you watching who want to go to it. Within that article, he talks about how there was doubt. Do I come back? Do I come back early? Do I try to push it and come back early because I want my team to win? But the potential of getting re-injured too early or not producing and maybe it impacting my draft status. So there's a lot of variables with such a sound player like him who has, so much upside still. There's a lot to consider as far as going into this one. And I think just to kind of give an abridged version of that article, Tucker in it said, if it means him just being another tackle, an added offensive tackle on the field, he's willing to do whatever it takes for his boys. And a lot of times when you do have a lower leg injury like that, it is easier to go north and south from a blocking capacity than it is to demand the suddenness of getting in and out of cuts and in opening it up top end speed and then having the risk of getting tackled in the lower body as well. So a lot to think about there, but we're excited either way to have him back and just the mental. Talk about that because you were actually his teammate. What's he bring to the table in terms of an edge?
Tucker's super competitive, even to a point where like it'll piss like you off, like as a opposing player. Because I mean, like he'll block till after the whistle, let you know, call you a few words, then like you guys are arguing back and forth. But I mean, as a player, but all you can do is respect him, bro, because it's like, this dude works his ass off, like more than a lot of people. Like I'd say people I throw in that conversation are like your Mason McCormick's, and a lot of the D linemen and Tucker Kraft. Like these guys work extremely hard, right? Like lifting when they don't have to, coming in and optional workouts, like and actually busting their ass. You know what I mean? So, and having someone like that, like knowing, like, bro, if he's like that with like his friends, I can only imagine like how he's about to do guys that he does not know.
Certainly, the names he's calling them are Sir in good fellow, right?
Yeah, homie.
Homie.
That's his go-to.
Bruh and dudes are their pronouns. So basically, what you're saying is big surge to the mental, outlook when they have a guy like that on the field. And from the perspective of competitiveness, this team's already super competitive, but to see that is excellent. There was one play too when Yankee Jackson caught a bubble screen or a tunnel screen last week. And you could see the competitiveness because he knows if they convert on that and don't have to settle for 3, that could have been a huge difference in the game, even more so to that point, because really we weren't being stopped that much. It was a penalty that was putting us behind the sticks. So,
Yeah.
the Yankee boys are going to bring it. Mark's going to bring it. You damn well know Mason McCormick's going to bring it.
Yep.
Greenfield's going to bring it. These younger guys, Bernstein, if I pronounce that right.
Yeah, you do.
Gus Miller. Those cats are ready to rock, man, because they lost last time at the Alerus Center. And then defensively, they're out there to hunt. They're out there to hunt.
I know, guys like Caleb and Ryan, like that they both played a lot that game. Like they're not too happy about stuff like that. And I know how they've been playing. Like for a second here, I just want to drop this. Ryan Van Marl has gotten a lot better in a year. A lot better. Like
yes.
I saw him making plays that like he never would have made.
He turned it up so hard in the second half, man. Because we were running some games and stunts. And for those of you who don't know, twists, like the games are like, and you refresh me if I'm off on this. Games are like when you're running stunts on both sides.
Or it could be a one side, but just like kind of
games. So like with a tackle and in a tackle, nose tackle and a tackle, different things like that for folks. So they're looping. You want to highlight this? This is your repertoire.
Yeah. So games are pretty much like if, let's say, the DN occupies the tackle, the offensive tackle, and the D tackle knocks him through, and then the DN and D tackle replace, or kind of, playing with where the offensive line thinks they're going to have to block, right? Like switching gaps or, taking people out, that kind of deal.
And this is important because, and this is where we actually get into the chess of football, because the quarterback, for those of you who always watch NFL football, maybe this is good. You see the center point out the mic being the moniker for middle linebacker. And that always isn't necessarily a linebacker. It's the middle of the defense based on their alignment. What that does for the offense is it allows them to play numbers. And when you're playing numbers offensively, that allows you to set your protection, particularly when you're passing the ball. So when you're passing the ball, this is where Stat could really highlight this for the folks listening. You usually have a zone side of the offensive line protection, and then you have a man side, which means like you're man up, mano a mano, right? You got to block and do your job. On the zone side, that's when you see slide protection. So that's when you see everybody kind of sliding in one uniform fashion, double teams, things like that. Talk about that when you're running games or stunts. How does that impact it?
So when you get the zone side, right, like you have the center sliding to your side, it's kind of like, so that guard and tackle kind of have like a little leeway on that side. So the center might be able to see it, right? Mm-hmm. So if let's say as a D tackle, you pin the tackle's hip and the DN rolls around, it's probably not coming around free, because even if the guard does a bad job and rides a tackle all the way down, the center's going to see that. And the center will be able to pick that up. But like, let's say we're on the man side, and depending on the team you get and what personnel it is, you may have a running back there to like kind of help clean up stuff. But I mean, if it hits off clean, like running back's going to get dropped, and it could potentially, there's a lot better chance of it being a sack there.
Yep. Which is why it's so important, when we do, which we kind of run a different scheme, because Isaiah's good and our offensive line tends to do a great job of picking up without additional help from the backfield. But it's nice to have Isaiah in there who's got a little more weight in his jockstrap. So yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head with that. I do think it would be pivotal to run some games this week as well on that offensive line. Maybe our slants will offset their elephants on parade. I don't know. Did you guys run any of that stuff in 2021 spring?
In 2021, towards the end of the game, like when it was like real passing situations and when Cade started kind of doing really well, it was just like, go get him, right? Like we just called jet pass rush, a line wide, beat the guy in front of you, right? Gotcha. And I believe personally that's where Cade Tavere's the best, where he just gets going.
Freedom.
Right? Yeah. Because I feel like with the combination of like speed and strength that he plays with, right? Like you kind of hinder it a little bit when you're like, oh well, you have to go this way, or oh you should do this
Yeah.
instead. Like no, like if Cade goes and he sees his guy set, he's like, all right, I'm gonna put him on his ass, like he was doing all last week. So
Yes, sir. Well, shout out to Mike Bertzloff here. Hopefully, I didn't mispronounce your last name. My maternal side is German. I think that's German. So my German's a little spotty, but man, really appreciate the compliment. Stack's carrying this
appreciate you, Mike.
because he knows how to talk that football stuff. The other guys are great too. But man, Stack just puts it in better perspective. So we appreciate this, man. And when we're talking, scheme and things like that, all that is all well and good. But when you talk about atmosphere and environment, now, what is this environment like in contrast with the Fargo Dome?
So like it's like a much toned down scale of that, right? Like it wasn't like when you're playing there, like you're like, oh man, like they got, the crowd's young. I can't hear a thing. Like, dang it, what's going on? Like the fans are good, right? Like the stadium's more nice than it is big.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It looks way nicer and cleaner and like more updated than the water plant treatment center that we just came out of playing.
No, the stadium's actually beautiful, bro. Like the turf's nice, the big what is it, the big screen that they have, and like the fans aren't too close.
Yeah,
and, like it's not that big, so like I don't think our boys will have like a hard time like adjusting to like the atmosphere itself, right? Like they'll be able to play in that. Like they were able to play in the Fargo Dome just fine. They were able to play at Iowa, right? So I think.
Now, do you think because we did have several false starts in both those games? Do you think that now that's a little skewed too because O'Brien was actually anchored in now at that position at that tackle, and I believe he was going up against Waggy, and Waggy's a good player. Like no,
look, and he was offsides like half the time.
Was
like,
he?
They didn't say that he was offsides like half the time.
Was he just getting a good jump too, or like just
no? Like he was like his head was like over the ball.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, don't expect anything coming out of Fargo, but yeah, so I think that he'll hopefully clean that up. Obviously, those jitters will be out because it is a different dome, a different environment. There's always 1-0 on the line, but personally, I think it's just formulates a different challenge for the offense because this is an even and odd front. So maybe you can highlight that because you have that good background, that full background on D-line. Talk a little bit about an even and odd front from a real simple perspective for the fans.
So an even front is just like your two D tackles are lined up, head up over the guards. But an odd front's weird because we did some of that our last, I think, 2 years I was there. The odd front kind of really, so it's like a center, the nose is right over the center, and then you got a guy in oh crap. You got a guy in a 4-eye, right smack dab in the middle of the guard and the tackle, another 4-eye on the other side, then an overhang who's just kind of playing a 5, or he would be outside a tight end if he was right there.
So for folks who are hearing 4-eye and they don't understand that terminology, a 4-eye is just inside shade on the inside hip of the tackle.
Yes.
And then so when Stack talks about in odd front, you can also run two eyes, right?
Yeah.
In an odd front. So it just kind of depends. So two eyes are inside eye. The defender is lined up on the inside eye, meaning the eye closest to the ball of the guard, versus a 3-4, which would be an odd front where you got head up, usually got a G, right? Which is a shade on the center, or a head up the center, 0.
They usually go 0.
0. Yep.
So you get 0. A 2 gap it.
So give you a little bit, just a fun little overview of the nomenclature in football settings, because there's definitely its own grammar and it can be tough. So if we say that, that's what we mean. So now the reason the undies do that is because they like to run a lot of stunts in games, like we're talking about, right? So the reason that they do that is because of some of the things that you said earlier on, and we've talked about. They adhere to scheme really well. They recruit the guys that will fit their scheme, which everybody tries to do in theory. but they do really well given the resources that they've got, right? So they recruit the speedy, flashy, high motor guys who are bendy and maybe have length but don't have the most weight behind them. They're not putting up these like insane numbers, but they're going to give you effort, man, and they're going to really try to put you off kilter, right? Not only with the noise of their dome, but with the blitzes and stunts and games they throw at you. And so one of the things that's tough is what they do on the edge. This is where Hines is going to come in pivotally, which he's a damn good blocker. So what he's able to do, I can't say enough about Hines. Everybody needs to literally watch Zach Hines play and just focus on him, because what he did last week, catching one of those balls and literally bulldozing one of their DBs for about 5 yards downfield to get the first, and just what he does in the run game, whether he
people out of there,
whether he's swiping or washing the whole line of scrimmage down and creating cutback lanes for Zay or Amar. I mean, just brilliant.
I'll say him and Mike Morgan as well. I think when we run split zone,
and
you got Mike Morgan running down the line of scrimmage to take out that DN, like every time it's a collision. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a thing of beauty. And Mike Morgan is a Swiss Army knife, man. Like, just the fullback and the H-back position. Got to shout out Kevin Brenner too. Like, bringing that, always choosing violence, man. I love that. Kevin Brenner, number 44, which I'm quite biased and partial because I had a similar path to him. Wasn't quite great enough to dominate on the D line, but had a little bit of skills. So switched to H-back. The D line is so stacked at South Dakota State right now, and it historically has been. It's a really good position where we're able to recruit. And so Kevin just doing whatever he can to force the coach's hand to get on the field. And I love that, man. And your teammates love that because they thrive on that. They're like, all right, this guy's going to do whatever it takes for this team. I need to do whatever it takes for this team. Yeah. Similar to Canyon Bauer, right? Showing up for his squad, doing what he can with effort and big time pivotal catches when we're behind the sticks like he did in Fargo. So Zach Hines, Kevin Brenner, Mike Morgan, and Tucker, if he plays, they're going to be getting that window dressing. They're going to be getting those looping stunts from the 3-4 linebacker that's up on the edge and the defensive lineman there to try to confuse us when we're going our pass pro, to not allow another offensive player to get out in the pass game. So that's going to be a key matchup, I think, to watch.
I think with the odd front, it's like there's a lot that kind of goes into it, right? Like even when we ran it, I was thinking like, dang, like let's say like for more so than just a pass, like if you want to, let's say you want to run power against the odd front.
So for folks, power is when you pull the guard and or tackle, right? And you want to explain that, and then the running back hits it a gap.
So like it's just. I wish I could just draw it up because I'm better
Maybe
at that.
Chad can find us a graphic and then we can throw it up here for folks watching if they want to revisit. But continue.
Yeah, so like you just get a back block, a double team on the front side, and then the guard will pull around, whether like NDSU does A-gap power. So sometimes it'll be like hitting the A-gap or hit right outside. And for when it's an odd front, like – it makes it kind of a little tougher on the O-line, right? Because they have to wash all the way down to get that 4-eye if they want that guard to pull.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, just kind of switching up blocking angles for people and stuff like that. Like, running an odd front, I think, like how we used to do it, like if you just line up in a regular front and then switch to it last second, like that's like really hard for offensive lines to pick up.
Yep. And so what Thomas is talking about right now is stemming. So stemming is pre-snap movement from the defensive line where they line up in one position, and then before the snap, they get into their natural position where they want to be. That creates difficulty. Right now, that's a lead dive. Power would be with offensive linemen pulling. But regardless, the Jacks are going to want to hit A-gap tight against I don't even know what front that was, but we'll find it. There's something out there, I'm sure. But yeah, man, that's a great point because it stresses the offensive line in their responsibilities, especially when they're trying to block. So you think they'll block more space, more zone type blocking against a front like this than as opposed to hat on hat, or what do you think?
I mean, I know for a fact like the guys are just going to stick to what they do best, and I mean, obviously there's some zone plays in our scheme, like. a
You think
lot of
stretch zone hits more on a 3-4, or you think you like more inside right at them into the T?
I like inside just because, like, when you have good old linemen like we have, bro, like, a lot of this kinda depends on guys being able to two-gap stuff, right? So, like, that
Mhm.
means, like, I'm playing the gap that I'm in, but, like, I could also snatch across and, like, end up across in case the running back, like, declares there. I don't think they'll be able to do that against our
Yeah.
O-line, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
if
that's
you
a
have
really, really good point that you bring up. That
yeah,
is a
so, like
very good point, and also, they may not be able to do that because 'cause they're not that body type across
right.
the D line. So,
Right. So, like, I don't think you'll be able to body up Mason McCormick, sit there, see like, oh, Isaiah's going here, fall in that gap, and make the play. I don't like no disrespect to them, but like, bro, like they're not built like that to like
no, they're
do
not.
that, do
Eh,
that to O line like ours.
then again, I don't know if that's their scheme either because 'cause they're trying to knife in, and they're really just doing a lot of I think almost every play I saw them in the spring season, they were doing some type of slant stunt or games. So it'll be interesting to see, man. It'll be interesting to see just to recover and review. Beautiful. For those watching, we got a little counter action right here
Yeah.
that Chad pulled up. So we'll probably do a little bit of that. We're not a heavy counter team, but I'm sure we have that in the playbook.
This might be my favorite offensive play, man.
I
Counters
love the
just
counter.
counters so cool
Yep,
when it hits
counter
off
is very
correctly.
cool, and counter is a great variation off of power
Yeah.
for various reasons. But just good stuff, Chad. Thanks for finding that good visual because it is tough to talk about schematically when you have no visual. So, folks, just listening, if you want to watch this, we're live on our broadcast on the Jackrabbit Illustrated Facebook page, our YouTube channel, as well as the FCS Fans Nation podcast affiliate network on YouTube. So if you want to check that visual out, you can see it shows all the blocking lanes and angles and where the play is supposed to hit. Now Chad pulled up Power O. Power is the name of the game. NDSU's made it a staple. It's been a staple in the Jackrabbit offense as well for years because in the Dakota territories, you got to run the damn ball.
Exactly.
So here we go. Here we go. We got to get a budget for a dry erase board for Stack. I like that, Mike. We're going to get Stack on the board and quiz him, just like I'm sure he'll have flashbacks.
So man, I got a dry erase board at the office. I'll bring it next time.
Nice. Excellent. Man, make sure they're color-coded markers,
I got you. I got you.
Pink for breast cancer awareness, please. It's October.
I think my marker is actually pink. It is.
Yeah. You a fan of that? That's cool. That's cool. You're in touch with your feminine side. That's good. We'll go with that. So we got the record right here for North Dakota. They're 4-2 on the year. They played an FBS opponent, the Fighting Frosties at the time. That was probably his most signature win on the season. And let's see, we got trying to see their whole season here. Yep. So September 3rd, they lost to Nebraska 38-17. Then they eked one out against Northern Iowa. This was at home, so playing at the Alerus Center, 29-27. Then they eked another one out against Northern Arizona at Northern Arizona, so that was a pretty decent win for them. Then they got bludgeoned on the road at Southern Illinois, 34-17. And then they went back to work against well, I think maybe we should call them Misery State again because I don't know what the hell happened to them. All hot air, no gas on that fire.
So yeah, they put too much into that playing an FBS team close. You can't really.
You can never do that, right?
Yeah.
They're the almost.
Yeah.
In the Youngstown State game, a little closer. Like Youngstown State must be improved, but obviously that's on the road at Youngstown State. North Dakota State North Dakota is just such a different. They're literally almost night and day outside the Alerus Center. Not in terms of what they look like or what they're trying to do, but in terms of the juice that they play with is quite different. So we got to be on our A game tomorrow. The game is set for a 3 p.m. kickoff Central Time. It's going to be on ESPN Plus, I imagine. It's not showing right here online, but it is on ESPN Plus for those who aren't local and have access to those channels. And then Yeah, man. I mean, it should be a good one. We haven't really touched on special teams, but it's worth addressing given how big of an impact it's had the past
Yeah.
few years. In last year's score, playing them pretty tight, even at home. What do you think? What do you think about our kickoff coverage unit? You think we'll be able to shore some of that up?
Oh yeah. Like if they are how they were last year, I know they were drilling the hell out of that all week. You know what I mean? And it, it's a matter of just like focus, right? Like these guys are playing here. They've played a lot of football. Like so obviously, like you can do it. Like we've seen it on tape. Like we've seen you guys do it, right? Just about the consistency of doing it every time. And I know, no one wants to be the guys where it's like, oh, like this happened because of me or that happened because of me, right? So I mean, I'm sure, and a lot of guys on our special teams and our kickoff unit, like a lot of those guys are some guys that don't get to play a whole bunch, right? It's like if you take this, like take every rep very personal, like hey, like this is my impact I'm having right here, right? Like it doesn't matter if it's 3 snaps, 5 snaps, like I can make an impact on this game, on like our team record, on how we do, like right now,
You
right?
got me. I got chills, man. I'm ready to rock. You must be a coach or something. Woo,
No,
man.
man,
I
but
might need to go for a walk after this. I'm amped, man. But that's so true, and you can't say that enough. And the way you put it was literally magic. Because take your reps personal. Take it personal. That's your time.
yeah,
Football is the closest mirror to real life, where it's mostly a grind with glimpses of awesome, right? Coach Stig would call it life's an average. But football is the closest mirror to real life as there is, right? You work so hard at things either to, have a little bit of a letdown at times when the lights are shining brightest, or you rise up. But either way, you got to extract a lesson from it. So
right,
take those reps as personal as you possibly can, because this is your life and your football life is so, so short relative to the rest of the stuff that you're going to do in your life.
yeah,
So, I mean, you said it perfect, man. Yeah, I think they're definitely going to step up, and a little bit of healthy peer pressure is always,
yeah,
obviously they're going to pick them up if they make a mistake, but nobody wants to be that guy that lets his team down. And,
right,
and Coach Stig says all the time he really loves this team, and I think that shows. The love for this team shows, because when guys are making a mistake, for instance, Hunter Dustman hasn't had the most illustrious season, but the dude balled out when the lights were the brightest, like
right,
absolutely balled out on that tough. The game winner was one of the toughest angles I've seen on a kick.
yeah,
It was like an 18-yard field goal, and it was like the the angle was, yeah, it was
yeah,
brutal.
right hash, like yeah,
Right hash, you got to
like
hook it in. It's, yeah,
yeah, it
incredible
was
work.
dope,
That whole operation, damn good job stepping up. So,
yeah,
and then his punting game was solid too, and theirs was not, because that played an impact
yeah,
at a certain point, where literally I've seen games of the Jacks, and maybe you've been on the teams, but I think it was just before you arrived. Ben LeCompte, he's literally their punter at North Dakota State, has literally won games for them just because he flipped the field, similar to the Iowa punter this year. So hopefully we can inflict that kind of pinch on the offense for the Fighting Hawks and make them have to drive the length of the field several times to get the job done. So
yeah,
one point of note here that's very, Brennan would be all over me if I didn't bring it up. The scheduling. This is a very favorable schedule for the other Dakotas and not us. So this is the second time we're playing a Dakota school coming off of a bye week. And the last time we showed out pretty good against USD. Now this team is coming off a bye week, has played a relatively light Missouri Valley schedule to date. Southern Illinois being like the real test for them on the road, which they didn't get it done. But now they are at home, and it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. So
yeah.
they'll be rested. They'll be ready to go. But with that, maybe a little bit of a rust from a bye week. So hopefully it'll be something the boys rise up to in terms of the challenge. Now, Chad brings up another good point. Oh, sorry, Stat, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, one thing that how we've been recruiting and how these guys have been around so long. I think the Jacks depth really lends itself like to a time like right now, right? Like games like this, like if this were like 3 years ago, well, 4 years ago, like Kellen Solik's taken like
all the reps.
60, 70 reps, like all these games, right? And now, like, we get to have guys like Caleb Sanders and Ryan that get to take not even a load off, right? Like, they get to
More impactful reps,
yeah,
right?
because like we have guys that are difference makers that are twos and sometimes even threes when you get to like the DN spot,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So,
let's be real. Kevin Brenner starts at D end at 90% of FCS
yes,
schools.
yes, he does.
You know?
I'd say our 1 to 3 deep, man, like those guys could start anywhere, right?
Yeah,
Like if
exactly.
Jared DePriest. Oh, speaking of the
Me-
D line, we're getting Brian Williams back this week. My
Yeah.
guy,
Oh, let's
I,
go.
I name dropped him, man. Watch him show out this week.
Yep.
Brian's gonna
Brian
go nuts.
Williams. And then we got I always butcher his last name, 93.
Oh, Balloon,
He's
massive.
like a rock solid balloon.
Yeah,
That dude is massive. Is he the biggest D lineman we have? He's huge.
he's only like 270, but like
What's his
tallest.
height?
He's like
He's
six
6'6",
six
6'5".
because I think Jared's 6'5". He must be 6'6". Then
He's big, man. Like
yeah,
that's size we've had tall guys before, but you're talking like that's like Eric Schroeder size, like
he's massive.
6'5", 297, and doesn't have an ounce of belly fat on him. It's just
Yeah.
insane. But yeah, Brian Williams back. I mean, we're gonna be stout in the trenches now. Now, can we chase down these run lanes? Can we rush the pass or move in the pocket? That's what I want to see. So look for guys like Quentin Hicks in this one, maybe to have like a bigger impact, a little bit more twitchy, a little bit more burst. Obviously Reese Winkleman, like
Man,
insane.
he playing like a young man again, dude. Reese
Yep,
is looking twitchier than he did last year, so that's fun to see.
it is fun to see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
6'6". Says 245, but I think he's been in Larson Commons a good bit.
So yeah, no, he's a lot bigger than that now.
Right. So I think it'll be interesting to see who lines up from in our LB positions. Freeman, Chad Bowles brings up a good point here. Chad, I don't know. I saw Freeman out there a tad bit against the Bison, but I don't know. Chad, garage time. Do you know anything? No. Chad shaking his head vehemently. We're unclear. We need to get Matt on the case. I know he's on vacation, but I bet he has a guy who knows somebody.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I think we'll be, as Stack highlighted, our depth is really, really solid. So regardless of what happens, I think whoever is out there on the field is going to be able to have a starter type impact, whether it's number twos, number threes, or the main ones. So we've pretty much covered all bases. This has been a good one. What do you think as far as predictions? Who's going to shine in this one?
who's gonna shine? Ah, man, I can't bet against Amar after last week.
Yeah.
I'd say Amar, and obviously Mark didn't have a good game. But on defense, I'd say a game like this really lends itself to, like you said, someone twitchy, like Caleb Sanders. Like,
Yeah.
and they're not the biggest guys up front, right? And like, I don't see them being able to block him for 4 quarters. Obviously, Adam Bach's going to go crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need Caleb to dent the internal offensive line for sure, or anybody, but particularly Caleb because he's able to really knife through gaps pretty well, and stick his foot in the ground and get upfield, and that really throws off the elephants on parade, right? Because it disrupts rushing lanes and it allows you not to screen block, if you will, when you can't man up like an offensive line like South Dakota State. So I like that. So you got Amar on offense and you got someone like Caleb Sanders on defense.
Yeah.
What do you got as far as score predictions? So to give you some help on this, I think the Jacks are only averaging allowing, so 21 last week, 21 divided by 13, roughly 15 points a game is what we're allowing. And then we're scoring roughly 27-ish points a game.
27-10.
27-10. I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to go 30. We'll go 30-17, Jacks.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those that we didn't convert into 6 points last week, I think we'll maybe eke some of those out this week, maybe some chunk plays. I think the energy that Tucker brings back, even if he's blocking on a couple plays, it's just great energy to have. And I think overall, I think we'll get them. In terms of my players of the game, I'm going to go with one of the safeties. I think maybe
My guy Reader.
I was gonna say Reader. I like how he hits. So I'm gonna go.
My guy Reader.
Reader. Herder's been balling though too.
Bro, I didn't even talk about him, bro. He's been going crazy.
Yeah, Colby. Shout out to him, man. Just being a heady dude, playing where the ball is. I thought he was gonna take a knee, but he ran the ball out. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Better house it. But
so work on that top end speed. But
yeah,
no, he's nice, bro.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I think it'll lend itself to either like a Reader or a Herder making a big play when they try to catch us sleeping. And then I think offensively, I like your pick with Amar. I do like your pick with Amar. I think he's got a hot hand, feed the hot hand, and he may be called upon to do more with the rock in his hand. Now, Jaden went off a few years ago and would have had like an even bigger game, had some of those balls hit. But Jaden's been absolutely having a hell of a senior year, man. I mean, there's so many weapons on this team, and like we're obviously a little bit biased, but objectively, I'm talking defensive weapons, offensive weapons. Jaden has been a factor in the run game. He's been a factor in the pass game. He's now returning punts because he's sure-handed. I mean, which one of them is going to the Senior Bowl?
Dude, I'd say the Twins, since they got here, and like if you just like physically look at them, like if you watch an old game,
great players, bro.
Yeah, look at Jackson like 3 years ago and look at him now, like he's like, and I feel like I always say this, but like, dude, he's huge now, like he's jacked. Like,
both of those kids, man, it's like they're just. I mean, obviously they share the same DNA, but they're shredded. They look, and we joke about it tongue in cheek right on here, but they do look like creative players that you would make on PlayStation or something back when you're playing, NCAA football.
Oh, for sure.
RIP, but it's coming back. So
that's what I heard.
Word on the street. You gotta get the Jacks on there though, so it won't be worth it if they don't put them on there.
Right, like if you don't pull like the top
NDSU,
FCS
South
teams
Dakota
in there,
State.
like, come on, like what are you doing? But you're gonna have like Appalachian State on there, like
preach. Exactly. James Madison will get on there. What the hell?
Of course, they were on the old one.
Yeah, they used to be on the old one too. Exactly. They'll probably have like FCS North or East, like they did way back in the day. But well, now we're just going off on a tangent because we've covered literally all bases. But for all those who tuned in, man, we really appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
Good guys are going to take this one. If you can get to Grand Forks, if you can't get online, like Coach Diggs says, we need you. This will be an exciting one, man. I think this is the best team to date we're playing in terms of overall top to bottom ability, especially where they're playing. So we're going to need it. Let's go 1-0 this week. And with that, go big, go blue,
go Jacks.
Go Jacks.